let's get on to the more mathsy side where we have four values of interest, MPC, five, MPW, where MPW equals MPT plus MPM plus MPS. So the MP in each just stands for marginal propensity. This literally means proportion or percentage of the last. Marginal of the last, proportion, propensity, think proportion, percentage. So your MPC, your marginal propensity to consume, just means what percentage of the last unit of income went to consumption. Or in like simpler terms, if you earn a certain amount of money, what percentage goes to consumption, right? If you earn an extra pound, that's the last unit. So if I give you an extra pound right now, I say, here's one more pound, that's the marginal unit of income you earned. If you go out and spend 70p of that, then your propensity to consume is 0.7 or 70%, right? Very, very nice and simple, I think. It's literally just the percentage of the income that people earn, or to be technically correct, the additional or the last unit of income they earn that they go out and spend. Okay? So it's effectively how much of their money people spend. And then MBW is how much they don't spend. So anything that isn't spent is withdrawn from the circular flow, right? Marginal propensity to withdraw. And naturally, you get the marginal propensity to withdraw by adding up all the withdrawals. So very simply, let's say tax is 10% on all income. People spend 10% of their income on imports, which is a withdrawal because it leaves the economy, and they save 10%. So if I give you £1, you have to pay 10p to the government, you spend 10p on imports, you save 10p. Then MPW is going to be 0.3, and MPC in that case would have to be 0.7. MPC and MPW must always add to 1, because we're assuming there's only two things you can do with your income. Either it's spent in the economy, or it's taxed, spent out the economy, saved, or it's withdrawn, basically. So everything is either spending or withdrawal. So MPC plus MPW must equal 1, and this is why K can be calculated as 1 over 1 minus MPC, or 1 over MPW, because that is the same as that, right? These MPW and MPC must always add up to 1. So again, any questions, please, in the chat, because the next bit is probably going to make most sense unless there's some sort of a familiarity with this, or you're fairly happy with this. So, okay. What I want to look at here is not actually how we do maths multiply questions, because again, it's quite easy. I might give one at the end if we have time. But common mistakes that are made. And for those of you who have lessons with me outside of this, like, this is going to be a bit of repetition because we happened to do this recently. But the rest of you, really, really important that you avoid this mistake. It's so common. It's unbelievably common and drives me nuts. It really does. It's one of those. But all right. So again, I'm assuming people are happy with these concepts and how I've explained them, so we can move ourselves on. So what I want to look at is the difference between MPC and C, or MPS and S, or MPM and M, etc., etc., etc. So I'm going to be a bit cruel, and I'm going to try and catch you guys in a trap here, but hopefully knowing the trap maybe will lead you to the right answer. So let's say my income increases. Again, people who have extra lessons with me, don't. You can put your answer in the chat, but I'm not paying attention because you should know this, right? So income goes up. What happens to consumption, and what happens to marginal propensity to consume? That's my two questions. Answer in the chat. Please make this one nice and quick. Can't dilly dally. We want to get to output gaps today as well. I might see if I can change the lighting because it looks a bit on the dark side. So if people's income rises, what happens to their consumption? What happens to their MPC? Okay. I've had one answer straight into the trap. It's cruel. Again, do not. This is nothing personal, guys. But I'm kind of doing this to emphasize how easy it is to make this mistake because I have a major plan. Unless you devil's advocate me and you go, well, I think it's this, and he says everyone's made this mistake, so I'm going to say the opposite of what I think it is. I think unless you do that, it's very hard not to make this mistake, which is my point, right? Which is why this is very important. Okay, we have had one. Oh, okay, Drew. Which decreases? They both decrease. One decreases, one increases. So the question is, what is happening to consumption and what is happening to MPC? So an answer should specifically tell me which one goes up, which one goes down. Okay, very good, Drew. Lovely. Good, Leah. Okay, very nice, very nice. So we've got a few people on there, which is excellent, really, really good. Although again, you might be devil's advocating. So, okay, just to make sure we explain this. So it's not actually a straightforward relationship, and the answer you could almost say if income increases, what happens to C depends on MPC. And what happens to MPC? It depends on C. So it's not a straightforward answer, and the question is more about understanding how these concepts relate. So let's assume MPC is constant. Let's assume ceteris paribus basically, and see what happens to consumption if income. If income starts off at £1,000, so let's say MPC equals 0.6, then consumption would be. That's definitely a mistake. Consumption would be £600, 0.6 or 60% of the income. So let's say the income doubles to 2,000, but the MPC remains constant. What happens to C? Well, it would also double. It would now just be 60% of 2,000, which is 1,200. So assuming MPC stays constant, there's a very, very clear logical relationship between income and consumption, which is the one we typically earn. Ceteris paribus, if income rises, consumption increases. So the mistake that is often made here is people will say if income rises, MPC increases, when what they mean is C. They mean people will spend more, which is what's happening here, right? You've gone from spending £600 a year or a month or whatever to £1,200. So spending has increased, but MPC does not necessarily increase when income rises. Okay, that is the essence of the error. Is MPC and C are not the same thing. And typically, if you say if income rises, what happens to consumption, ceteris paribus, you are assuming MPC is constant, right? That's the whole point of saying the ceteris paribus there. If income rises, ceteris paribus, what happens to consumption? By saying ceteris paribus, you are keeping MPC constant. So we are keeping, in this example, MPC at 0.6. Then the question really becomes, well, what happens if the MPC changes, for example? So let's say we drop the MPC to 0.5. Well, then consumption is going to be 50% of 2,000, which is 1,000, which is still bigger, right? Consumption has gone up. C in this case has gone up, but MPC has gone down. Okay. And this is the typical relationship between income and the two. So most people, their spending operates in this way. As they earn more, their total spending goes up, but their proportionate spending goes down. Pretty much every piece of research on this in every country finds that on average, this is what happens. Not necessarily every person, every individual does this, but for the economy as a whole, this seems to be a very, very clear research-backed relationship where the more money a country has, total spending goes up, And then on an individual level, the more you earn, the less you spend proportionately. Why? Because if you're very poor, you can't save at all. So your MPC is almost 100%, right? Because let's say you earn £1,000 a month in London, you can't save anything. You are spending, I promise you are spending every single penny of that every month. So your MPC would basically just be one, you'll be spending everything, saving nothing. And obviously the richer you get, the more you can literally afford to save, right? The more money you have, the more money you can afford to save. So the richer people are, the more they withdraw, and therefore proportionally the less they consume. So this kind of example is typically what happens, right? You earn 1,000 a month, maybe you spend 600, and you save 400. You earn 2,000 a month. You'll spend more overall, but proportionally you'll spend less. You're now saving 1,000. So okay, my question to you guys then: is it possible for an individual that their income could rise and that their overall consumption could decrease? Can anyone work that out? So if I increase the income from 1,000 to 2,000, is there any way that the overall consumption could actually decrease? In case it wasn't clear, answer in the chat. And you don't have to apply ceteris paribus here. I'll give another 10, 15 seconds. I'm assuming people are just mulling it over, stewing it over. Is it possible that C could be lower here than in our initial case? And for the mathematicians out there, which is most of you, I was hoping I would get some really quick, yes, of course. It's just maths. Just maths. Right, okay, let me show you guys. So I have got an answer, but I was hoping for something a bit more specific, and it would have to be if MPC decreases massively. Let's say MPC drops to 0.1. Anyone in the chat, you earn 2,000, your MPC is 0.1, or you earn an extra 2,000, your MPC is 0.1. What is your consumption? Right, very good, very good. Yes, 200, lovely stuff. So you can see it is actually possible, and this is why I said at the start, it's complex. It's not a simple situation of, oh, income goes up, this happens, or this happens, because it all depends, right? Whether consumption goes up or down depends on MPC. What you really have to understand is that there's at the heart a very simple mathematical relationship here, right? And once you understand that simple mathematical relationship, I think it then becomes much easier to see the relationship between them. Hopefully that's really clear after what we've done here, right? So like when your income goes up, if the MPC is constant, then definitely your consumption will rise. In most cases, what we should expect is that MPC drops slightly as people's income rises. So you would typically, again, as I went over, this is the typical situation. People get more money, they spend more money, and they save proportionately more money. But if you play with the numbers, right, it's a mathematical situation at the end of the day. If you change the numbers enough, if MPC falls far enough, even to 0.2, then it is actually possible to have maybe surprising results. But I guess almost what I'm saying here is your way to answer these questions shouldn't really be using pure logic. You should be using maths. You should be thinking about it mathematically, thinking about how these two relate, thinking through examples like this to fully understand it. Because if you think about it purely on logic, you can fall into a lot of traps like, oh, if income rises, MPC rises, which just sounds right. It sounds logical, right? people have more income, we know MPC is to do with spending. MPC rises, spending right. But again, it's actually very, very rarely is that the case. Very, very rarely, almost never. It's almost always the other way around. That actually, as you earn more, your MPC falls.